Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my corner of the internet. Let's begin. Sweet dreams are made of cheese, or something like that. The world of Zoin's fantasy game Fee certainly doesn't look like an assortment of camembert and cheddar, but dreamy nonetheless. Remember the dream you had last week? About purple mountains and orange forests? You probably forgot about it 2 seconds after waking up, but that's exactly how Fee looks like. Intense colors, a big emphasis on light and shadow, and contrasting polygon graphics result in one of the most fun environments I ever had the pleasure to explore. And exploration is key in this game. You play as Fee, a cub of a seemingly very rare species. He actually seems to be the only one of his kind. Forget the last unicorn. This is the last winged glowing fox. Doesn't that sound more interesting? Alone and disoriented, he takes the first steps on his journey to, well, yes, to what exactly? That's completely unclear and certainly a nice change from all the hand-holdy games out there. Dear developers, have a little more faith in us players. Most of us have a longer attention span than a 6-year-old. Oh, a deer! The first animal you meet is actually a subtle design element to steer you in the right direction and straight to your first conversation. With a plant? There are no actual words in the game. Communication is more of a getting on the same frequency as whoever you're talking to. A dream for everybody struggling to find the right words sometimes. And haven't we all been in such a situation? One of the core ideas of the game is the notion of a bond that exists between every living being. You just need to learn how to communicate with each other. After a quick talk with Mr. Plant, you arrive at the most important spot in the entire game. You will visit this big tree over and over and over again. Why, you ask? Because it grants you new abilities in exchange for the crystals you find in the world. Sometimes hidden, sometimes in plain sight. The real question you should be asking though, why does an animal need a tree to teach him how to run? Maybe I should visit the oak in my garden more often? The more abilities you unlock, the more enjoyable Fee's movement gets. Everything flows into each other. You run up to a tree, climb to the top, and then glide to the new rock you weren't able to reach before. Plus, every new skill improves Fee's ability to aid his fellow animals, and they are in dire need of help. It doesn't take you long to come across the first character that needs you, Big Mama Bird. This lady is completely hysterical after weird robot-like bipeds steal her eggs. Thankfully, they haven't gotten far and turn out to be relatively harmless, unable to make out the difference between glowy grass and Fee's spikes. Seriously guys, you have this big eyeball thing in your head. Use it. If you do get caught by them, that means straight to the last save point for you and try again. After finding all her babies, Mama Bird is so thankful that she teaches Fee their language. Admittedly, I think Fee would have preferred a hearty omelette after all the running around. Once he can tweet and chirp with the best of them, Fee can call a pilot bird that shows him the general direction of where he has to go next. No need to take a peek at the map or, God forbid, follow the markers that you can thankfully turn off. Very useful and delightfully subtle. But let's take a step back for a moment. I can't be the only one wondering how Fee can mimic bird sounds. The most likely sound coming from him is a growling stomach because he didn't get that omelette. However, it won't stay the only strange noise coming out of Fee's foxy snout. After being able to speak bird, the adults of the Flying Pancake bird race are now okay with playing taxi for you, which opens up the way to the next area. Remember the first creature you stumbled upon? Every single species in this world seems to have a problem with the robots, and the deer are no exception. The so-called Soundless caught a gigantic stag about the size of a skyscraper. How did they manage that? No idea, but it's your job to help. Again. This time the evil guys are actually a bit more dangerous, and it reminds me of the very first time I met one of them. I almost had a heart attack. What a ridiculous reaction, right? But this robotic thing suddenly crawling towards me was such a stark contrast to everything that happened before. The soundless stand out like sore thumbs among all the nature. And still, if they don't belong in this world, why are there morals depicting them? In the area with the skyscraper stack, you can actually see two gigantic statues of the robots overlooking the valley. They are constantly staring at you with their huge, unblinking eye, while you free the majestic giant from its shackles. While I was dodging unwanted attention and taunted deer into doing my dirty work, I kept wondering, shouldn't something this big be able to throw off flimsy ties and crush the soundless under his hooves? Just another reminder that size really doesn't matter. After securing its freedom, you would think that Faye would be shown some sort of gratitude, but not a chance. The stag enjoys being free, walks around the place like nothing ever happened, and you have to figure out what to do next. Pilot Bird to the rescue. He points you towards the trees that grow on the legs of the behemoth. It takes some finesse and timing to reach the right spot, and then glide and climb up until you eventually sit right on the stag's head. And finally, the big oaf notices the pipsqueak that saved his butt, and he teaches Faye to speak deer. Faye really takes what does the fox say to a whole new level, because he can potentially say things in up to 6 languages. And even better, depending on the active language, his spikes glow in a different color, reflecting the color scheme of its speakers. Anyone else interested in a plushie of this little guy? The whole game looks like it could be a setting of a fairy tale, and wouldn't you know, Fae is actually the Swedish word for fairy. And like every good fairy tale, Fae also has some rather weird characters. Say hello to these animals? At least I think that's what they are. At first glance, it's simply a race of ferret-like creatures. But then you witness a strange ritual. The younglings lose their legs and become some sort of burrowing slug, and the shed limbs turn out to be newborn babies. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Those weirdos aside, the world Zoink created for Fae is simply beautiful. Sometimes I start up the game and just wander around because it's so relaxing. Or I spend small eternities searching for the highest point to dive down from. It's just so much fun. Usually, a good soundtrack is a necessity for me to completely enjoy myself. However, the prevalent silence here actually fills an important role. Any epic melody would just spoil the atmosphere of the game, and that would be a real tragedy. For everybody that enjoys exploring fantastic environments and protagonists with plushie potential, like I do, Fae is literally a dream come true. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, hope your day's as good as gold, and see you next video.